Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United of the GM Vauxhall Conference have put our First Division Coventry City winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes down. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United from the National League are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast. I'm your host Mike, and joining me today we've got the head of the Sutton United Foundation, Bobby Charles. We're going to be finding out all about the work that the foundation does, behind the scenes stuff, the bits that we kind of know about but haven't paid probably much attention to the last few years because the on the pitch stuff has all been very, very exciting. Don't forget you can help with costs to support the show with one-off donations or regular subscriptions by joining us on Patreon. If you want to know more, look for the support us page of the website, which is www.suttonpodcast.com, or drop me a message by email or at Sutton Podcast on any of the socials. A big thank you to everyone who supported the show in the past, and a very big thank you to all those who currently still are. So without much more ado, as they say, let's get to it. Okay, and joining me now is Bobby Charles from the Sutton United Foundation. Well, no, just Sutton United in general, almost Mr. Sutton United. Hello, Bobby, how are you?
Yeah, good morning, Mike. I'm very good, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for giving me some of your time. You're one of those names and faces that, as I alluded to, seem to be around for a long, long time. But for anyone who doesn't know you, can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to join Sutton? And kind of how you got first involved and what your role is.
I joined in Doz's first year, which I always have to recalculate. It was the year after Sutton got relegated from the Conference South, and I'd been at Lewis for a year and a bit, and we won the Conference South and all got the sack. It's a long, boring story I won't go into, but the club didn't really want to go up, so that was an odd one.
Right.
So I had a bit of a disillusioned summer thinking, what's the point of all this? And then Doz, who I didn't know, rang my house and spoke to my wife, which was, nobody does nowadays. No house phone never rings. And she basically said, please take him away because he's getting on my nerves. So I was due to meet him one night, but I was quite busy. I'd sort of private clients. I did a bit of work for Sporting Chance, the addiction charity that Tony Adams founded. I was there for 10 years. And so I phoned him up and said, I can't make it. And he went, all right, sort of wrap on. And I didn't hear from him for a few weeks. And then he rang back, and it turned out he tried a young lad that didn't have any injuries, so thought it was all right to sit in and read The Guardian. So he couldn't part with him for very long. So I got involved with Doz and got involved with Sutton United. And I'd worked there before, because I worked for the old Wimbledon, and we used to play our reserve games there. So I knew the club quite well. And yeah, to be honest, I thought that it was all covered in brown. It really needed sprucing up. The dugouts were miles from the halfway line. Yeah. And anyway, I came and I really enjoyed pre-season, as we all do, because the sun's out and you can wear shorts and T-shirt. And then we got into the season. And I had a sort of not a few run-ins with Doz, but obviously he's a bit of a maverick. And anyway, long story, but we're still friends now. So there was no harm done, but we certainly had our moments. And, I grew to really love the club. And I haven't gone away since. I think I started part-time. And then Doz called me and said that they were going to invest in the 3G. And could I look after it? So I think I became, apart from Steve Prince, the bar steward, I became the only full-time employee. And the 3G was fantastic, and I lament its passing. But, onwards and upwards, we're in a fantastic position now. Something I could never have dreamed of, having joined a club 13, 14 years ago that were in the Rymans and looked like they were meant to be there. It was, it was time for a shake-up. And obviously, as you know, Doz, along with Bruce's help and all those behind the scenes, sort of grasped the nettle, and we've pushed on. Still punching above our station. It's been very enjoyable.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, we won't go on about the 3G too much because Sally's in the other room and she's still very bitter about being thrown off the flat shoes and then the FA Cup reporters trampling all over it.
Well, we did try, and then it was a riot. So all over. There you
go. But your role has changed. I mean, you were kind of, was physio, was it? Or,
part-time physio, sports therapist, part-time for many years for the evening training. And then the evening training kind of morphed into 2 days, maybe 3 days a week down at Surrey Sports Park. And by then I actually had a proper job. I worked for Surrey County Council in their estates department. And I couldn't make training. And I said, well, you better get someone else. I said, oh, don't be stupid. So they did get somebody to help out. And Catherine, the masseuse, she was travelling down by train from Sutton. And we had another chap, Stuart Douglas, who I think was working at, ended up working at Wimbledon. So he kind of filled in the daytime. And then eventually we ended up back at Gander Green Lane with the 3G. So we were able to do our daytime training there. I left my job, and which my boss said was good because I'd looked miserable for a while. I've always said football's better than working for a living. So
yeah, I'm the one I'm extremely obviously anyone working in football I'm jealous of, but I think John Davis I'm very jealous of. He gets to play with spreadsheets and be involved in football. I'm like, oh my god, where was that when I left school? But I mean, a couple of different things. You were one of the few who got to kind of see the season of our lives through the pandemic. What was that kind of like working in that weird environment?
Yeah, it was odd. It was kind of, you don't get any feedback, do you? The current gaffer's got a very loud voice. I remember being at Woke and literally bullying everyone in the stadium just because his booming voice was had no comeback. There was no crowd giving him stick. It was kind of bouncing off the snooker club, which is behind Wokin's ground. And it was surreal at times. It was. I do remember one funny moment though at Bromley, and Mark Frake, club historian. That was his. That's how he got into the ground at the time. Berating the referee, and it was just like one of the stewards had to walk around the ground and ask him to stop vaping and stop abusing the referee, otherwise he'd be thrown out. So only Frakey could get thrown out of the empty stadium.
Yeah, vaping. I can't understand the vaping thing if there's no one else around.
But just on the whole thing, it was almost like somebody didn't have something to do. It's that, well, I've got to justify my position and and walk around the stadium. But no, it was really odd, and it was I think we coped with it with better than most. We didn't sulk about it. We trained, we applied ourselves as best we could, and all credit to the manager and Jason, and they just kept driving us on, and we kept winning. So
that leads on to you kind of already alluded to life as an EFL club, professional football club. Obviously, you've already said you didn't really ever expect it, but what were the thoughts when you kind of realised that, oh my god, that's happening? I know you probably had to go straight into like, oh, now we've got to go into work mode to get the pitch sorted, but.
Yeah, well, it was odd because when we were in the playoffs a few years before with Doz, and it was almost like everybody had their head in the sand, really kind of, there's no way we could cope with this. Anyway, we didn't go up, so it didn't come to pass. But, I don't think we'd made any preparations because we just couldn't see ourselves doing it. And then we regrouped. We got some sort of fresh impetus with Adrian Barry and Tim. And obviously the American guys came in and everyone sort of got their heads around it. We had long discussions over the new pitch. So that, I can remember being picked up by a cousin of mine, and we were going to pick up her kids. And I was still on a call till about 8:15 one Friday night, discussing with the prospective pitch installers. And God knows when that was. That was probably a week after the promotion was confirmed. And we were deciding which pitch. We went with Agri Power, and they were brilliant. you can't fault their efforts. I think they had a 90-day program, and they lost 40 something days to the weather. So they, we really struggled to get the pitch in. I remember when we installed the 3G, it was in 6 weeks, and we never lost one day to bad weather. So you can't.
Yeah.
So the pitch, we were scabbling around with the EFL. We're saying, well, we're going to ground share. They said, no, you can't do that. So they delayed our home matches, and even when we played our first home match, the pitch wasn't quite right. But it wasn't through want of trying. As I say, contractors and sports turf sort of subsequent involvement was excellent. But you can't lay a pitch in August and expect it to be ready. So I thought the pitch struggled in the first year. It's been excellent ever since. It's a really good surface. But behind the scenes, in terms of just the overwhelming, FA doping control, as a physio, FA doping control, head injury assessments, heart scans, making sure your database of names, addresses and locations of where people are going to be when they're not training. It just felt a little bit overwhelming to begin with, to be honest. It was just how we're going to get. But, all credit to the EFL and the EFL Trust that are now involved, or they help you. There isn't, you can find some leagues lower down that they just want to trip you up all the time. That's my impression. But I can't fault the EFL and the amount of information they give you. And, if you have got a problem, they won't say, well, tough. They'll always try and get you through.
I mean, after the promotion, obviously, there was a lot of conversations about the pitch, and a lot on social media. I don't know how much you would have seen, but it took a little while for the message to get through to sort of opposition fans that we weren't overly bothered about the first team, because the first team were always going to have a pitch to play on. But did you understand and get the feeling that the fans were actually worried about the women's team, the academy teams, the disability teams? Where were they going to go? Did you kind of get that sense of what people were saying? No, it's not just one team. We're a whole big club.
It was really difficult, and there was a lot of alienation for a long time. And Duncan Muller was running the women's side at the time, and obviously he was trying to bat for them. The walking footballers said, what's the point if we're not training at Sutton United? What's the point of us being associated? Obviously, we had Jamie de Cruz. We had hundreds of kids here during holiday programs. It was really difficult, and it was really difficult to make those people understand that they were still important. We did. There was a period of adjustment. Obviously, the women couldn't even play here to begin with because it couldn't take more than one game a week, and that was difficult because we had SCR here at the time in that first year. And they'd been good tenants for us. So, because we didn't know we were going to go up, we couldn't say to them, go find somewhere else, and leave them in the lurch. So it was really difficult juggling all those, all that disappointment and kind of managing the expectation going forward. And, we did simple things like, invite the walking footballers to a game, come and join in. And, and I think they're, in the majority, they're firmly back on side. We do make them feel part of the club, but not having that, hub where you see people all the time. They can tell their friends, oh, where do you train? Well, I do it at Sutton United, and they were proud of that, and rightly so. It was, and we didn't really have anyone, certainly didn't hire it to anyone who didn't respect the place. Well, we had a few, but they didn't last long. So it made a massive difference, and we've made important strides and initiative to make sure those that are no longer training here do feel part of it. But it's been difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I have a very mercenary heart, to be honest, because when Lottie, my oldest, was sort of training with one of the teams, I used to come down and see all the kids on the pitch and see, oh my God, there's all these kids almost every night, and all my head was going is they're future Sutton United supporters, because they're the ones going, that's my pitch, that's my club, blah blah blah, and that's what kind of upset me a bit about the pitch having to come up. It's not that it was a magic pitch and we had an advantage on it. It's, oh my God, it's money. It's future money disappearing. Obviously, you've got a very different experience to us on match day. What's your favourite part of match day? So any match, if you're getting up in the morning, you're like, right, match day. What bit are you looking forward to?
I like to get there early. I don't like really to see a lot of people when I first get in. Different for me now because I'm not doing the running on, so I'm not quite as firmly entrenched as I was. So I'll go to the physio room. Does anyone need any help? Saying hello to Ali, seeing where she's at with injuries because I'm not in the training ground every day. Just to get an update for when I speak to people, ask how they are. And then I'm just basically getting organised for the game. I've got different responsibilities now. We have hopefully up to 100 school kids on Saturdays come to visit the game. So Mike Nicholson deals with those. So he's dealing with tickets. I love it when the game starts. I like it when the little few minutes before kickoff, Gaffer gets everyone on their feet and gives them their last little pep talk. And we're all quite jokey and sarcastic, and we've all got a little eccentricities. But once you kind of walk out the corridor in the tunnel, it's your game face on, and try not to muck about, and try to play yourself seriously.
We're professionals here.
Yeah, and then and I try not to get into any verbal altercations with anyone anymore. Yeah, and internalizing it is agony. So, no, I just win, lose or draw, we always go for a drink, and you try and unwind and don't take that home. That's the important thing I learned. Because no one indoors really cares. My wife, my wife will. No, it's not fair. They do care, but it's not for me to transfer that disappointment indoors. So,
I absolutely get that.
And I just, like I say, in answer to your question, I love it when the game starts, and it's and I like to see, not because I'm a coach, but I like to see what we do during the week, and I'd like to see it in the game. Those patterns of play, or particularly something that people have been worked on. I don't know, because then that you've been part of the process, but you've seen it behind closed doors, and you think, well, that's what we've worked for. I
think there's obviously a lot of talk about goals, mostly, and strikers not scoring. And I have to say, I didn't react as probably I should have when Matt was on and he was saying, I don't judge my strikers on goals, and I'll get into other things. It's like, you really should be expanding upon this point, Mike. You should really get him to explain what he means, but I'll let it go. I was too scared of it. What's been your sort of, on the football side, your standout memory? I asked this a lot of ex-players, so I don't know what you're going to ask. What would you like everyone to be saying? Oh, Bobby, I remember he did blah 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 for the players.
So behind the scenes, I've been the sports therapist for all of those years, and I still have an input now, a couple of days a week. But the majority of my time spent on the foundation. But I like the fact that I was responsible for the pitch, and that it was more or less to capacity, as much as the local market would allow. I mean, on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, we could have rented it 2 or 3 times over. And I was part of the uplift in income. Obviously DOS was really important with the investment, and just to be able to be a part of that income drive. And when we got rid of the 3G, struggling for a training ground, we were all on the hunt. We ended up at Sutton Grammar for a little while, but they doubled their intake of the school, so they didn't really have the capacity for us to kind of move pitches. So that kind of, then we were at Wharton and Hersham. So, it's behind the scenes. I'm moving fridges. I'm making sure we've got the equipment there. Obviously Clive's a massive transporter of gear everywhere, but just trying to keep the physio beds, and just to make sure that we keep going. So, I mean, I don't particularly want any praise for that. That's just, you're at Sutton United. You got to do what's got to be done. There generally isn't enough of you. Adrian's a case in point at the moment. He's our CEO, and you see him processing season tickets, and you're thinking, surely there's somebody who can do this. So if there's anyone out there that's got some spare time to take some workload off that poor man's shoulders. But it's just one of those. You kind of, if something needs doing, you do it. Make sure the chairman's happy and crack on.
You need to be careful with getting the work off Adrian's shoulders. His missus might be coming back going, no, take him.
Yeah, there's always that.
We're going to come onto the foundation in a minute, but I just wanted to just ask, how kind of stressful was it earlier this season with all those injuries. I mean, it just seemed to be one after the other, after the other, after the other. So how behind the scenes, how was it feeling? I know you're not on the training ground.
It was very difficult because you're not only there every day getting people ready for training and treating. You're taking people to consultants. You're liaising with insurance companies, and the particular John Barden incident was it was a difficult moment, but the people at Stevenage were excellent. I've trained for those moments. You do first aid trauma courses, and they bully you, they make it difficult for you, they make you they make you ready for it. And that was a difficult night. Subsequently, he got some excellent surgery, and he was probably the worst of those injuries, but he's doing fantastic now. He's got a fantastically positive mindset. Obviously Kobe's knee, I can't even remember half of them, but yeah, it was really difficult. And we'd lost our head of foundation at the time, so I was trying to juggle that as well. And I've got to be honest, I don't think I was particularly doing well at anything. I got through it, but I was disappointed not to kind of lead that team anymore, but grateful for Ali to come in and focus on that. And she's done fantastic. So yeah, it wasn't a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I did see Catherine a couple of times in the morning. I'm coming to my work and she's going to hers, and I said, "How is it?" And she's like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "Is it take a ticket?" And she's like, "There's not even any tickets. There's just there's no room for anyone."
Yeah.
But you mentioned the foundation, and I kind of wanted to focus on that a little bit. What kind of tempted you, persuaded you, inspired you, whatever word you want to use, to go for the head of foundation, to take on that role?
Well, it was kind of natural, really. But God, how long ago was it? So 2016, 17. We were in the National League, and I looked at the fact that why weren't we accessing the funding at the time? So if you did some work in the community, whether it be the girls' teams, walking football, coaching, girls' development, any of those things, you got 65% of the money towards it. And you're thinking, well, we've got to take advantage of this. And we spoke to a lady at the National League Trust, Susan O'Brien, who I'm still in contact with. And there's the difference between the National League and the EFL. The National League Trust has got one full-time member of staff, and the EFL Trust, I think they had 64. They had a little bit of a reshuffle, but they're still got 50 odd members of staff. So it's that's the difference between non-league and EFL. And I can't even remember what the question was now, but
why you took on the role?
Yeah, so I sat with Dave Fairbrother and Susan O'Brien, and she basically said the club hadn't communicated very well over the previous few years, and she wasn't really interested in helping us out, and so put us on the back foot. So we promised to behave and communicate better. I didn't quite know what she was alluding to because I wasn't part of that previous. But yeah, I think it was just indicative of the time. It was, everyone was doing everything to keep the club going and solvent, and it was just one of those things that had fallen to the side. So I picked it up. She was really good at helping us, Susan, and we got our funding, so we were able to support the disability teams. But that's really where that comes from. PCSO Stephen King founded those community teams, and he's still got 50 players, still got 4 teams. He's got his own league now. I can't speak highly enough of him. So he's kind of the nexus. He's where that comes from. All we did was kind of get that funding off the back of them. Support the walking football, support girls development. Jamie De Cruz and Wayne Shaw and I started a Monday night girls development. Shorey used to whip up Oreo cookies into an ice cream. That's how we got the girls and their parents to come to the game. He used to serve it out the blue cabin as a bit of a laugh. Not that little girls could reach the window, but we used to charge them £2, and it cost about £4 a milkshake. But so we started that on a freezing cold Monday night, and Jamie's still running that at goals with sort of 38, 40 girls registered. So we're quite proud of that. And the 3 of us, so that's where the community work came from. And then I was really busy, obviously, with the first team. We're in the EFL, so Duncan Muller seemed the right fit to take over the women's section. He'd done a really good job in growing that. When he arrived, we didn't have a women's team. He brought his Surrey Eagles team to us, and we had one girls team left. I think the whole thing was kind of unraveling. Tony Henderson-Smith had tried to keep it together, but couldn't really do it on his own. Duncan grew those teams, grew the women's section, and took over the foundation and was doing a good job. And for whatever reason, that didn't work out. We'll gloss over that. And I heard a conversation that said, we'll have to support that internally from the club. And I thought, well, there's only one person that can support that internally from the club. So I kind of knew it was coming. So came back in the summer and just tried to keep things going, really, until we knew we needed a chartered physio, which is where Ali comes into the mix. And we needed somebody, and we did advertise. And then I think Matt rang me up and he went, well, what about Ali? And she was with us 3 years ago. And obviously she's moved on. She'd worked under a really good chap whose name escapes me at Wickham. And she was really keen to come back. So that kind of gave me back the focus for the head of foundation. But as you say, I wish she could have come a month or two earlier, because we were drowning. But she's grasped the nettle, and things have improved. So,
what has he got me involved with here? Is what she said.
Exactly, yeah. It's hit the ground running.
So I think the foundation is something that everyone knows of its existence, and everyone has kind of, we've got the foundation, But I'm gonna be honest. What is it to do? What does the foundation do, and what are its objectives? That's the word I want. So what should fans know about the foundation? Not just that we're always rattling buckets. What's?
Yeah, I think it came out of that community work that already existed, and the National League Trust were keen for people to become independent charities, because what you get when bigger companies invest in football clubs and community schemes, what can and has happened is that the money just goes into one pot and it gets absorbed by the club. Not something that we've ever done, but we had a separate bank account, but it needed to be a proper charity. And being a proper charity gives you access to different streams of funding. And I think we're struggling, well, not struggling, but we're trying to move forward. So we do our disability teams really well, walking football really well. We do a little bit of work in Carew Manor, coaching some special needs children. We get involved with the local schools. Philip Hedger is our chairman of trustees, and he's also, I think he's got 10 schools now under his leadership for the Leo Academy Trust. So what we're trying to do is do more work in schools. We can now, despite being an EFL club, we can now access Premier League funding. And my next meeting after this is to meet the head of Metropolitan Police for Premier League Kicks. And Premier League Kicks is a program that helps underserved communities, and that may be underserved due to gender, ethnicity, access, because you can't afford it. So lots of different schemes. So I've been working with a chap called Chris Hamilton, who's the Police Youth Engagement Officer, who you might have come across. And together I've been trying to help him with some of the ideas that he has. We've got a fun day in May at Croygas, 1,000 kids. So he'll be talking about knife crime and county lines, and we'll be trying to have some fun on the day as well. And Sutton United will have a few stalls there. So that's kind of the direction we're heading in. So we found, there's stuff that we've been doing a long time, we're doing really well. And the girls comes under the foundation, and the two, the reserves and the development teams for the women come under the foundation. So, we're making sure that they're well funded. All those teams pay subs, and the girls teams are pretty much self-sufficient, and they access something called gift aid, which you would have heard of. And being under the charity arm, they can do that. And if they weren't, they couldn't. So there's an extra 25% income for that section. So, we're trying to bring that sponsorship in. I was speaking to James Bailey the other day, the estate agent, and he's really keen to support that section. Smith and Byford have been fantastic over the years, and their connection with Steve King, the disability teams. And we do have a couple more, but I can't think of them at the moment, so I do apologise. I'll send you that information so you can publish it. Otherwise I get in trouble.
No, I'm sure that you're remembering everything off pat, so there's no notes here. So I'm sure people forgive.
So so what we're trying to do is we're trying to get Premier League kicks off the ground. I've made the application for funding. I think they'll let us get going because they know that we've not done this sort of thing before, and it's just important that what I couldn't get a hold on before was a referral service. So I could have got the money and I'd have no kids to refer to me, whereas the youth engagement officer has got that connection to the schools and the social services. And what we're trying to support kids that are at risk of offending. They might be having some issues at school with lateness and ill discipline. So, trying to get to that cohort and engage them before it gets worse for them and their families. So, that's where we're at. We do a lot of work. We've started little box of books, which is a set of 20 books that talk about different diverse families and family makeups. And that's gone down really well in the schools. We've got another event next Wednesday when some local schools are coming. I'm going to talk, and the players are going to talk about books they read, and the kids are going to tell us about books they read. And so Craig Eastman and I did that at Brookfield, and it was a lovely hour or so that we did there. And Eastie has read Stephen Gerrard's biography. We established that, but he's a parent. He does a lot of nighttime reading to his kids. So we had a connection, and we're doing a club author day in April, which follows on from that literacy program. So kind of things that not necessarily the public to get involved in or resonate, but just to be aware of what we're doing. And one thing,
the name out there and doing.
So we're what else are we doing? So one of the things that Chris is doing is trying to get the three Sutton mosques to play each other in a cricket match. So, so just as a case in point, one of our trustees has been on to the Lord's Foundation to look at supporting that with funding, and there's a couple of Muslim foundations that may support that. But you have to have lots of conversations, and you learn a lot as you go on. You have to learn what people are looking for when you make an application. It's an art in itself.
I was going to say that they're working for the council. I know some of these things are like they're asking a question and you answer the question. They're like, that's not what we're after. But it's what you asked. That's the question you asked me.
Well, I think the biggest case of that is the pavilion. So we've had a crowdfunding campaign, a couple of £1,000 in there. So that there was 4 failed attempts before we were successful with that, and the Football Foundation never gave you any feedback on the Tony Henderson Smith and a couple of other guys were applying, and you never got any feedback, so you never knew why you failed. And then the FA and the Football Foundation came up with a brilliant idea. They sent someone to help you write the application, and it was brilliant. And so every time we came across a question, we gave the chap the information and he gave us the answer, and that made that application really easy. And even the Football Foundation said, why didn't we do this years ago? Because we've got all this money and we actually can't give it out because no one gets the answers right. But it's like taking an exam you've never had any teaching.
So the women's and girls program, I know we've mentioned it. I mean, to me, that's always a no-brainer. Obviously, I've got 2 girls. Everyone knows I bang on about the women's team quite a lot. But again, with that mercenary hat on, it's the women's game is kind of where football's going to be able to grow in the next few years, because we can only fit so many bodies in seats and stadiums and so on. I know we've got some room to go, but why do you think that's been successful in Sutton with the amount of girls that we've got?
I think it's a good setup. I think it's been well supported. There's been a lot of buy-in for the parents. You can't do it without the parents, because they're the ones that sort out the fixtures and collect the monies, and because there's a lot of buy-in there. And Mark Back is trying to lead that section. I think Duncan did a good job there. He made the women's team successful, and I think the rest of the teams, they feed off of that. Yeah, I don't know. Just good atmosphere created. Obviously, you have your teething problems along the way, but you rely on the volunteer coaches, and hopefully that Mark and the rest of them create an inclusive atmosphere where people feel that they're contributing. So, and I think as I say, the women's team being successful, Will's trying to take that on to the next level. But you're now competing with some very well organised teams that support their players financially. Difficult to say how much, because it kind of, as in always in non-league football, there's a lot of rumour and counter-rumour. So I shan't touch on that very much. But it's a very competitive league. And I know Will from years ago. I think he's an excellent coach. He taught my daughter how to play football. And, she was a strong-willed character. And I think he dealt with her very well, probably better than I did. But he's good at nurturing people. He's very patient. His training gets you very much back down to those basic technical skills, which are essential. And he's got a nice way about him. So I think that should filter down. So the first team is now under the club. The idea is that none of those girls pay subs, and rightly so. So it's up to the club to bring that sponsorship in and to support that section. So I hope that bodes well for the future. It just puts it on a much better level.
Yeah.
A more sort of serious footing. So
and then we've also got you mentioned the disability teams, sort of pan disability teams. Had Aaron on a few weeks ago, or months back now, and he said something that just absolutely threw me and blew my mind, where he was saying that he was at West Ham. Obviously, it's West Ham, it's a Premier League club, and I think he said another Premier League club were after him, but he came down to Sutton, and everyone was saying, go to Sutton, they're one of the best teams there is. And he was like, Sutton, what are you on about? Came down, saw the setup, saw it all, and he was like blown away. And then he said he was an England international, and we apparently said to him, well, we'll let you know. And he's gone, what? Hang on a minute. It just completely blew my mind that Sutton was not just competing with the Premier League names, but being considered one of the best there is.
Just because, I think that I said it's not a problem, but I think there's 50 registered players. There's 48 still playing. Steve told me the other day, and they just get inquiries all the time, but nobody wants to leave. It's a really good place to be. He's really good friends with the Arsenal Foundation. They think the work he's done is fantastic. They go to Chelsea, and they're on the same level. Southwark, another fantastic setup. And I don't know. Again, it's about people, isn't it? Steve created a good atmosphere, well disciplined. Consistent high level of coaching. They'll train whatever the weather, and and they're very competitive. They've been to the highly regarded George Best tournament in Belfast. They'll be going again this year. They were in the final a few years ago, and I think one of their best players got taken out early on. That's how competitive it is at that level. But they have a great time. They have a great social as well, and I don't know. It's just a good place to be for those guys. So
yeah, it's just obviously you hear the big names and your mind automatically goes, oh yeah, they've got loads of money, and then it's like something above them. You're like, whoa, that's not right. That's not obviously it's completely different because different funding, different as you kind of said. Some clubs just do these things as the tick box to get the extra funding to put into. I'm not saying West Ham do that, by the way. Anyone, don't sue me. But it's just a tick box for some clubs. So the other one you mentioned, which first of all piqued my interest because I'm getting towards it now, walking football. And then I realised that I'd still have the problem of being rubbish anyway. But the walking football, what's that? And how do people kind of get into that?
Yeah, it's on goals on a Wednesday, and I always get the time wrong. But Fred, who looks after that section, along with Stephen Preedy, will always put us right at 10:30 on a Wednesday morning at goals in North Cheam. They've talked about a second session but we're waiting for a slot to open up at the Life Centre. The evening session's not as popular. Well, certainly not in the winter. And because we used to have two before, we used to have one on a Monday night at Sutton and then one on a Wednesday morning. And I think probably one thing that some Sutton United up. We had players join us, and on one half of the pitch on a Wednesday morning, the players are warming up. And on the other side, there's a walking football game. And players look around going, surely this can't. That if anything encompasses Sutton United, then I think that was first team on one half and the walking football on the other. So, they're quite a good social. They do play some matches. I think they played Fulham a couple of times recently. And I think it's quite cheap. Is it £3 or £5? That's terrible that I don't know, isn't it? It's, first session's free anyway.
Yeah.
And,
cool. So I don't want to keep going on about it and make it sound like we're always asking for money, but how do you get funding for your projects? And money is obviously important. I know you've mentioned the crowdfund thing, which I need you to mention again, because I could see there's only a couple of weeks left on that. But how do you essentially get money apart from these applications?
We believe it or not, we've still got some money from the National League Trust because of COVID and because of the way kind of programs got pushed on. So even when we got promoted, we were still using National League Trust money. So they've kind of underpinned what we've done for the last few years, and we're due a final payment from them hopefully soon. So that's kept us going for a couple of years. So the PFA give the EFL Trust some money, which basically pays my wages. And we got some Premier League funding. We got what you call core funding. So there's £10,000 there. We've recently got another £4,500 from the Premier League for cost of living. So I'm hoping to put that towards our community fridge. And I'm speaking to the Sears Garden project, which I don't know if anybody knows, is just off the bypass by Cheam Lights. It's a fantastic community garden there, run by Kevin, who I've got to go and see again. And they do some great work. It's a social enterprise, great cafe, cake's amazing, highly recommend it. So it is the applications. We have had I think we did have an anonymous donation, although I think I know who that anonymous donor was. So we had a £10,000 and we don't make a profit on the walking football. There's a little surplus, and then if they need a coach to go away, that kind of supports itself, with the money generated. Say the girls sections is self-funding, and it's that sponsorship bit that fills the hole for those two women's teams that come under our under the foundation, and those two teams do pay a subscription, but they're looking to get promoted this year, the reserves. So hopefully that'll come off. A little bit more travelling involved in the next league up, and so recently spoke to Lords Builders Merchants, and they've got a foundation, and so I've applied for some funding there. So it is about those applications. It is about and some of the smaller ones are really straightforward. Are you a charity? Yeah. Are you involved in sport? Yeah. Are you doing good works? Yes. What are you going to put this to? Well, I'm going to get another member of staff. Okay, fine. And you think, well, hang on, that was easy for a couple of thousand, and it all goes in the pot. So say little surpluses, sponsorship applications of all sorts, anonymous donations. We do need a pledge page, but can people afford £10 a month? But it's the pavilion. It's the pavilion, exactly. Yeah. So we try not to keep going back to the same well and asking the same things. But hopefully we'll get involved with some more companies. If we can get a better profile, which is the reason that apart from obviously seeing your good self, one of the reasons I wanted to promote the foundation. We are doing good work. The club has done great work. It's got some great people involved. We've got a really good board of trustees. With different skill sets. A couple of directors from the main club are on that board, which is necessary to keep that continuity. And the club's been very supportive. I think I was the right fit at the time to take the job because obviously I'd been there at the start. I knew what was going on, and with the support of those trustees, that I referred to him earlier, Phil Hedger. It's quite difficult to get schools to communicate because they don't know who I am. They don't, they're very busy people, but Phil sends them an email and Phil Hedger, and they respond straight away. And it's good. So, you need people in the right places. You need, as I say, we've got one lady, Sophie Sargent, who works at Brighton and Hove Council. so she's used to those applications.
Mhm.
So I write a load of rubbish, and she translates it into what they want to hear, hopefully. So yeah, we just thought,
She's already done the application. She just pretends she's humouring you.
and then I need to mention him because he's going to stop working for us soon. But it's Nigel Griffiths. So he is our secretary at the foundation, and he's been doing something called CCOP, which is like 200 documents you have to get in place to be a charity. And we couldn't have got that 10 grand and 4.5 grand without being 50% compliant. So he's put together 90 odd documents, which is not to everyone's taste because they are laborious: risk assessment, sustainability, obviously HR, important stuff. But you can't get any of that funding we spoke about, without those things in place.
Yeah.
And we've got a young lad that came through our Kickstart scheme called Calvin, and he absolutely loves doing it. It's the best job he's ever had. I couldn't think of anything worse if I had to do it all the time. But those two have kind of put us in place for us to kick on. But yeah.
So do you find yourself when you're talking to you're out shopping, you're doing anything, looking around the local businesses, the national businesses, thinking, oh, I wonder if I can talk to these guys? They seem like friendly. And do you have to switch off and go, no, I can't do that today. I'm at a christening or whatever.
Yeah, I think I almost think we need the Premier League kicks, or we need the literacy program. You need something to hang your hat on, because, as I say, the other stuff are well supported, and we kind of don't need help there. But what we need help is to do something different. And I've always said it: we do the football stuff really well. Well, we should do. We're a football club, but can we get the literacy program going? You can do that through Premier League Primary Stars, which is a really good program for literacy and numeracy through sport, and also educating teachers how to run PE sessions. But in Sutton, my good friend Jamie de Cruz does a lot of that work already, coaching in schools. So we felt that Premier League Kicks is the way to make a name and to bring attention to ourselves. And there are a few people I'll be going to see to say, look, we're doing this. We're going to make a real good go of it. We've got some funding, but we need some support, and I think that's where we can make a name for ourselves and give those companies something to hang their hat on, as it were.
One of the things I should have mentioned earlier is also we do the warm space now, which is on Fridays 11 till 1.
Yeah.
Sort of how did that come about, and how's it going?
To be fair, the new sort of commercial events team under they've got Sam Earl and young Ryan Cheeseman under Ed Marsh, and they're trying to make more use of the rooms at Sutton United. And one of the things that we don't need to sell is to be part of our community. So that's a free space. And I also looked at warm space, which is a sort of I don't know where it sort of comes from initially, but it's supported by the Co-op and Morrison's but we haven't really got into that. But Sam, to be fair to him, is around on a Friday morning. When I'm travelling with the first team, I haven't been able to be there. But you've got Claire Laughlin, Sarah Aitchison, Dave Fairbrother, so Sam Earl, who works in that events team. And they're just trying to provide a space, come and have a cup of tea and coffee, biscuit, and have a chat. I think it can go many different ways. I know that we were trying to speak to somebody at your place in the benefits, which hasn't happened yet, but
No.
we'll leave that. And
no, he'll answer. Don't worry.
Yeah, just to provide, how can we help? So we don't know how we can help, but
Exactly.
to be there and to listen to people. And Claire Laughlin I saw a couple of weeks ago, and she'd spent a good 45 minutes with a chap who was a widower, hadn't really been out very much. Obviously, COVID had kind of stopped all his social interactions, and he was just really pleased to be somewhere just to have a chat. And if that's the most we can do, I think that's important in itself. If we can do more, great. And if I'd quite like to see a little board game morning. I'd be all over the Scrabble, and that would I'm not sure which direction it can go in, but it's a platform to to grow from. And it's, if anybody wants to do something, then or anybody needs something, then come and tell us what you need, and we'll try and signpost you. If it's a literacy problem or a connectivity problem, you need someone with a laptop to look up something for you, or it can be anything you want it to be. That's the
I mean, you just never, as you said, you don't really know what problems people are facing, and we are, leaving aside all the other experts, we are a big community of different people with different abilities. And a few months ago, I was completely thrown because one of our sports, Francis, was struggling to print something off, and she was getting very, very sort of a bit upset about it. And I was just like, Francis, I'll do it and I'll hand it to you. Just all you have to do is tell people, and someone will go, oh, I can do that for you, because you don't realise. And she was so grateful. And I was like, I literally printed off 4 pages or 5 pages of paper. It was literally nothing. So anyone got any issues, talk to someone, and we can obviously may not be able to help, but know someone who might be able to help. You mentioned various different projects that were coming up. What I think it was May, you said we got something at Corrigas.
May the 19th on a Friday. So it's something that the Youth Engagement Officer Chris has done on a number of occasions, COVID aside. So he just invites the schools, and they come and learn about social media, about county lines, about knife crime, about all those things that affects that teenage population. And Chris, and they're only toolbox talks. They're nothing sort of elaborate. They're not lectures. They're not, they last small periods of time, but the kids can have fun whilst they're there. I think so. McDonald's put a lot of sponsorship behind it, so there's inflatable goals and a number of other stations. So Jamie and I will be putting on some football stuff, and that'll be a big promotion for the club as well. And just simple things like the other night, Chris bought. It was supposed to be 40. I think they ended up being about 20 or so. You may have seen that on social media. Bought some kids from local schools and their parents who'd never been to football before. Mm-hmm. Some of those families that couldn't necessarily, wouldn't have thought of it. But he's trying to engage with those kids, give them something different to do. There you go.
So how can people get involved if they want to get involved and support the foundation? How can they kind of do that? I know obviously you've got the Twitter page, which is SUFC Foundation, I think it is, off the top of my head. Yeah, thank you. Good. But how can people get involved if they want to be able to help or do anything?
Yeah, I mean, they can message me. I mean, we need help in the girls sections with administration. Once we start putting on projects with the youth engagement team, we'll need some volunteer coaches. We can get people on coaching courses that we'll provide the funding for. So if anybody wants to get into coaching and don't know how, we can help with that. If you want to pledge any money to help any of the sections that we, I don't know, Walking Footballers, you won't want to pledge money there because they're like me, they're all grumpy. At the bless them. If you want to get involved and you don't know how, and you just want to have a chat on how you might be able to help, then just message me. It's foundation@suttonunited.net.
Perfect. And obviously, the current one is the pavilion that you're sort of doing as the fundraising page, which is, again, on the social media. I did link to it as well, but it's a crowdfunder and Sutton United Community Pavilion. So what's that for? What?
God, it's been so long in the making. This
is the one that Sarah did all the bike riding for all those years ago, wasn't it? The pavilion.
Yeah, I wouldn't have remembered that. That's just there was an original pavilion, which never really got off the ground, but and we probably used that money during COVID. But just to reassure people, there was a crowdfunding program many years ago, but we're basically a good chunk of change in, and well over 100 grand in fees and in getting the projects off the ground. We've got Football Foundation funding. It was a long, protracted negotiation over leasing with London Borough of Sutton, our solicitors and solicitors from the Football Foundation, because the pavilion relates to the pitches in Collingwood Rec. and the use of our girls teams, our walking footballers, our disability teams. It's a community space. It'll have a good sort of classroom, 2 changing rooms, showers, referees' rooms. So, it's a pavilion for Collingwood Rec. But when it's not a pavilion for Collingwood Rec, it's a pavilion for the community. It's for, I'd like to see kids, families come to games and use it before matches. You don't want to be traipsing around, standing on the terraces with your little kids before games. Can we get players over there before games? Can we let local community groups use it in the evenings? We've got space in the main building, but can it be used as a classroom during the day? That was one of the original plans. But we've got some money from Arsenal, from the Arsenal game, to go towards it. We got the money we've already spent, and the problem is, because those negotiations have been so protracted, we've still got the same amount of money we had 5 years ago, but everything costs more.
Yeah.
So the reason this we started this crowdfunder is because we're going to be short of money, because and we will be able to finish it, but our funding is set, but the price of labour and materials has gone up probably 20 to 30% in that time. So it's going to be a shortfall in funding. So we're looking at ways to. We've got some money from another charity to kind of tables, chairs, televisions, projector, screen. So I put this down as the kit out. This is showers, toilets, sinks, that kind of thing. And in reality, it's all just we need as much as we can in that pot. Otherwise, all that money we've already spent. It's going to go by the by. So we've got to start it no matter what.
Yeah.
We're heavily invested in it. So that's where that comes from. And I had a phone call the other day from a local community organisation who are considering putting some funding to bump that up. But basically we need £10,000 in order to get match funding from Sport England of another £10,000. So we're some way short of that. But hopefully we can, and we need 100 people. You couldn't have one person giving 10 grand. It's got to be overall. It's got to be 100 people pledging. So even if it's just 25 quid, that'll go a long way. I don't care how small the amounts are.
Really right. I'm looking at now. We're some way short of the both. I think there's only 16 supporters. So we need to. Get some more people supporting that ASAP.
I don't know how else to say please, but even if it's small, it doesn't have to be 500 quid like one person's done. There are some prizes there that you can win for your different level.
I have to admit, I did look at that very quickly, the 2 season tickets, but they went very quickly. But there's various other things on there. So do the sport. I'll be obviously tweeting it out again, but I think it says there's 15 days left, so hopefully we'll be able to catch that up ASAP or extend that. Now he's right. If I could give you a magic wand, okay, and say, right, every single one of the community foundation's objectives are going to be completed, and you can pack up and go home. What does the world look like, and what changes have been made for the foundation, or is it all ongoing? Things like you say about going into the schools, talking to the kids and so on. So if we could just say,
I think somebody like Stephen Preedy, who's been with us for many years, started out playing for the disability team, coaching for the disability team, and has really flourished. He's had an important part to play, helping me organise the walking football, and he comes in and helps at the ground. If I need kit moving about or something tidying up, and just to say that Steve's had a number of issues with health and mental health, and just to see, cases like that, somebody that can come to you with that just wants to join in and and flourish, because of the environment that you've created. So, that Steve King created, that, hopefully that I and others have helped him. So, cases like that, if you can. It's all right saying, doing your KPIs for your application, saying, we've had 100 kids through the door in the last month. 50 of them came back twice. They all completed the program for 9 months. That's great. But, what's their individual stories? What did they What did they get from it? That's the legacy that you want the foundation to make a difference. Chris has got some chaps who are and girls that are leaving. They've been in care, so now they're 18. They've got to not completely fend for themselves, but now where do they go? It's not something I'm fully aware of, but can you make a difference there? Chris has provided some sort of coaching courses for those guys. Can they come and help at the foundation? Just the simple sort of human story is the important part.
Yeah. So you possibly preempted this question, but this is going to be the last one to wrap up for you. What's been the most rewarding part of it for you? What keeps you motivated to get up in the morning? So I think you've possibly answered that, but
it was just really nice going on the little box of books, and you're going into a school and you think, I'm out of my comfort zone, but the teachers are lovely. Peter Fear's brother's the caretaker, so you kind of feel that he's a big Sutton fan. So as soon as you walk in the door, people are pleased to see you. They think, well, that's nice. And then you sit with the kids, and then you realise that they're all really nice and well disciplined, and and they just want you to talk about books, and you're thinking, well, it's not so bad, is it? Because I read a lot. I don't ever remember what I've read, but I read, and it was just nice to talk about what I'd read as a kid. And I just thought, there's worse things I could be doing, certainly. So,
were you a little bit worried what Eastie was going to get up to?
Well, he had his game face on, so I think he was more scared of the kids than I was. So,
just thought it's going to slide in on someone. No.
Yeah, now know what Steven Gerrard did.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time and fitting me in between talking to the Premier League and all the other bits that you have to do.
Appreciate that. It's really nice.
More than welcome, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Cheers.
And that's it for this episode. Thanks for everyone for listening. Thanks for Bobby for his time. Don't forget to let us know what you think of the show on any of the socials. Please like, share, follow, comment on any of them with @Sutton Podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast on any of your preferred platforms and make sure you stay up to date with the latest episodes, and you can do a review while you're there as well. Until next time, thanks for listening. Take care. Bye-bye. United! 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 United!